All right, in this lecture you're going to learn about going from a decimal to a percent. Now, let's just quickly recap. When we went from a percent to a decimal, we would multiply by 100. So we would multiply, and I'm using X for multiply because some people like to see it that way, times 100. That's what we would do. When we go the other way, from a decimal to a percent, we are going to do the reverse, and I can't spell percent. We are going to divide by 0.01. So we multiply going that way and we divide going the other. So our first one that we are going to tackle is where we have the decimal 0.14, and we want to change this into a percent. I'm going to do it the long way, where we're going to take this number 0.14 and we're going to divide it by 0.01, by 100. And if you want to, you can write the zeros in front of the decimal. It means the same thing. Now, since we're dividing by a decimal, and that's usually not the most pleasurable experience, we're going to take this decimal and make it a whole number so we can work with it. And when we move it over 2 places on the bottom, we must do exactly the same thing to the top. So when we move it over up top, we now have 14 over 1. And 14 divided by 1 is 14. And we have to note now that we've changed this to a percent, so we have 14%. Remember, if we were going from 14% to a decimal, we'd find the decimal point at the end of this number and we'd move it over to the left. So then we would have it equal 0.14, which is what we started with. Now we can start thinking of it as, well, we moved to the left when we wanted to convert it to a decimal. Now we're moving it over 2 places to the right to change it into a percent. Since that's a little hard to keep track of, what I try to tell most students is remember your alphabet. And it goes something like A, B, C, D, there's some letters, and then there's P and some more letters. And what I note is decimal for D, and when I will go from a decimal to a percent, we move to the right. And that's what we did up above. We moved the decimal point to the right. And we always move 2 decimal places. And sorry about my I. It's an I. Decimal places. If we want to take a percent and change it into a decimal, we move to the left. And once again, we still move 2 decimal places to the left. So let's go ahead and try another problem. Let's say, for instance, we are starting off with 0.05. And we're starting with a decimal, and we are going to a percent. So we're going to move over to the right. You can do the division where you divide by 100, or you can just go ahead and say, all right, here's the decimal point. We always move 2 digits. Because it's decimal to percent, we're going to the right. And now we have 5%. It's the same way if we're going from the percent back, we move over 2 to the left, and we got back 0.05. So let's try another one. Let's say we have 0.9. And this one's a little more challenging for some students because they see only 1 digit. We still always move over 2 digits. So we got 1, 2. When we have to fill in the place here, we put a placeholder of 0, and we have 90%. Because we changed the decimal to a percent. Let's see another one that's a little bit more uglier looking. Let's say, for instance, we have 0.0801. We find the decimal point wherever it is, and we still move 2. It's always 2 places. Now, the decimal point I'm not dropping off like I've done in the previous 2 because it's significant to write that we have 8.01%. It's just been convenient that beforehand I've been getting whole numbers, so the decimal point is always at the end. In this one, I had to make sure the decimal stayed there because I ended up with a decimal percent. Let's see one more that looks a little bit funky like this. And we have 5.1. This is our decimal, and we want to change it into a percent. So here's our decimal point, and we're going to have to move it over 2 places. And we end up with 510%. And we have to fill in a placeholder for that place that didn't have a digit. We can't just say 51. That won't make any sense. So that's it for now.